What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by Ping Pong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce space. What does that mean for you, the listener? Well, buckle up. There has been multiple episodes where we've had great insights, tips, tricks, anywhere to grow your business in different capacities. Each episode is going to be new, unique, and different spaces in the Amazon e-commerce world. We've covered anything from sourcing logistics to marketing, advertising, building out your listing, localization, even building in different marketplaces all around the world, even walking through specific tools that might lead you to, will help you, I should say, to better grow your business and become a better entrepreneur online. Without every episode is presented by, just to give them a heads up, is presented by Ping Pong Payments. Ping Pong Payments is helping more sellers around the world keep more of their hard-earned money, whether it's sending money to your sourcing agents or suppliers in India, China, Mexico, wherever you might be, paying them out in localized currency by saving and putting more money back to your bottom line. It's safe, effective, and it's really easy to use. All you have to do is just go to usa.pingpongx.com/podcast to check out all of our past episodes, but also sign up for free. Just let them know that Crossover Commerce sent you. Really easy to do. So thank you, Ping Pong Payments. As I mentioned before, if you're new to the podcast, this is a live podcast on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. What that means for you, if you're listening to this at a different time, we appreciate you listening after the fact. But if you're catching us live on your either lunch break or you just getting going in the morning, or you just want to end the day on a nice note of listening to myself and our guests, always, you can ask your questions and we'll answer live on air. So if you have a question by any of the topics or ask for clarification or just let us know where you're listening from, please put those in the comments below. We see those. We'll throw them up on the screen, give you a shout out if at all possible. Already going ahead and say hello, dear. Thank you, Maman, from watching and listening on YouTube. So we appreciate you already tuning in for another fantastic episode of Crossover Commerce. This is episode 238, and like I've mentioned before, we covered many facets of the e-commerce space, and today is none exception. I'm excited to have on, we've named the episode today, How DTC E-commerce Should Approach Customer Acquisition. That is very fascinating, can go a couple different ways, but I am lucky enough to have the co-founder and CEO of Fermat Commerce, Rishabh Jain of Fermat Commerce. His background is he's been an executive at LiveRamp, where he led his new business teams successfully, launching 3 new businesses inside of LiveRamp. And before that, he was co-founded 2 other startups, a solar energy company, and other laboratory data sharing. He has such a fascinating background. I had to get him on the podcast to make sure that we cover this amazing topic, how D2C e-commerce should approach customer acquisition. So take your notes. Make sure that if you're listening to this, get out your notary or a pen and paper, whatever you're doing, take notes today. And welcome to Crossover Commerce, Rishabh of Fermat e-commerce, or I'll just say Fermat Commerce. Rishabh, thank you for hopping on Crossover Commerce today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even ask you pre-show. Where are you joining us from today?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah, right next to the Giants Stadium.
Okay, so quick story. I've been to the Giants Stadium once. It was actually for a conference, not even for a baseball game. It was for the Rakuten conference. They would bring everyone out into the field, into the luxury suites. I got to go into the visitor box, the dugout. I'm a huge baseball fan, as you can tell.
Yep.
Huge fan of the Giants and what they do there. It's a beautiful stadium. That must be a really cool part of town to have your office at.
We just had, it was opening week 2 weeks ago. So it was
busy to get to the office.
It was incredible. It was incredible. It was very lively. You could just feel the energy back in this area, which is exactly what you want, right? You want to be working on a company where other people are extremely high energy, that's always very motivating.
I love that. I think that's a really cool dynamic. So you're a big baseball fan, but you're obviously in an office. Is your team all in office now, or are you remote or hybrid? How does that work out for you guys right now?
We're half and half. So we're hybrid. There's 4 of us who come to the office here regularly. And then there's a bunch of folks who are remote first, but we bring people together all the time. I'm a very big believer in being able to meet people in person at least time to time. I think that being able to work remotely is very valuable because I mean the world just changed 2 years ago, and
Sure.
I don't know that it is reasonable to assume that we're going to snap back. But I think it is fair to say that humans thrive on in-person human interaction. So
Absolutely. I think that's where some of the most unique ideas come from. And there's something about being able to not just talk through a screen, but to have that personal interaction. I was at my first conference about a month ago or so. And so that was, again, for the first time, it feels like in a long time, but just the ideas and the constant movement, it made time completely fly by, but also just the amount of conversations I was having with people. I would say is that the same thing for you? It feels like time goes quicker and you can feel your body and your creative juices going a lot faster and a lot more effective.
yeah, were you at Prosper or Shop
I
Talk?
was at Prosper.
Nice. Okay.
Shop
Yeah,
Talk
yeah,
was the following week, 2 weeks,
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. I
yeah.
feel like if you didn't go to Prosper, you went to Shop Talk. I had to say one to the other, and I don't know if I could do Vegas for a full week for both events, 2 full weeks in a row. I think my family would not be happy with me.
That is perfectly fair. Perfectly fair.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean to answer your question, yeah, I think that the energy that you get from being in person is very high. And at least for me, I'm a whiteboard guy, so every time there's an idea that we want to bat around, going to the whiteboard, I think brings the idea into a more tangible form. And so you just get more dynamism when you're at a whiteboard. So
absolutely. Well, you've developed multiple different startups. Obviously, reading your bio is super fascinating. I mean, I'm not one to just constantly read off the page and tell a story because everyone's story is different. So tell me, you had all these different startups. Why focus now into e-commerce and what brought you into it? Because reading it, I see solar energy and other data sharing companies. Why are you now focused in um, e-commerce with Fermat?
yeah, so I'll do the 15-second background.
Please
So
do.
growing up, I was in love with physics. And so I ended up getting my PhD in solid state physics. And while I was doing that, that's when I started 2 companies. So the first one was in solar energy, which was directly related to my area of research. And then the second one was a startup that was meant to help research labs, which is called which called Open Lab. So it was a data sharing startup. So that was sort of what initially got me really interested in startups. And then as I was graduating my PhD in my second startup, we basically had a co-founder disagreement. So this is like a very typical way that a lot of startups eventually have to dissolve. And it was really unfortunate. And I learned a lot of lessons because I basically realized that there were a lot of areas of growth for myself personally that I needed to work on with respect to how I interacted with especially technical co-founders. And so this opportunity to work at a company called LiveRamp, which you had shared as well in the initial read, was was made available to me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I should learn how to better be a leader in a software context. And I was able to do that while I was at LiveRamp. And so 2 things happened while I was at LiveRamp, and especially toward the end of that time. One was e-commerce just started to accelerate dramatically, right? Because of the pandemic. And underneath that, we started to see a lot of very interesting nuances of that acceleration in e-commerce. So the first one is that the share of Shopify relative to the share of Amazon started to increase. And also, the share of creator driven commerce was growing significantly faster than e-commerce itself. In fact, I don't know if you've seen, there's this like Accenture report, and they're predicting that between now and 2025, creator-driven commerce is going to grow 3 times faster than regular e-commerce, which is already growing quite fast, right?
So what do you mean by creator? I want to be clear for everyone who's listening to this.
Yeah.
They might think one way. What's your definition of creator-driven commerce?
Yeah, so what's sometimes called like influencer commerce or social commerce. So basically, when you're working with an influencer or somebody who creates content on social media, the commerce driven from that cohort is actually growing very dramatically, and we're really in the early innings of that. I think like the stereotypical examples are Mr. Beast and The Rock.
Right.
So Terramana Tequila, and then Mr. Beast did like the Mr. Beast burger, and then also recently did Feastables. So I think those are sort of like the very stereotypical examples of people thinking about, oh, creators are doing commerce, but actually it's happening at a much more high scale than just, you know, a few very well-known people.
So why? So here's top. What I have been working in affiliate marketing and influencer marketing for, let's call it 6 years. Let's round up. Let's round down, but it's been a while. I've done it in multiple different capacities. I've worked with people used to not think of affiliate marketing. It was like a dirty word. It was like a coupon or a discount. Affiliate marketing now has changed its name pretty effectively to influencer marketing, which again is essentially the same thing in my mind, just in a different packaged way. Having an influencer who has an audience, again, same thing with affiliate marketing. It's now become more robust and more front and center with e-commerce, Amazon specifically too, how people are driving traffic from one platform to the end destination. It could be a direct to consumer website. It could be a marketplace. It could be embeddable products, which I know we'll talk about later. I'm assuming with your products. I did my research. Why is it important that this was packaged, and why all of a sudden it's having this moment, or now it's become this resurgence of all of a sudden it was very important a long time ago and very small, but now it's become the front and center piece for a lot of different companies?
Yeah. So I think that there's two things. One is, what was the affiliate marketing
Sure.
of the past? And I think that the most traditional version of affiliate marketing in the past was like coupons, right? Coupon websites.
Easiest
right?
way to track it. Yep.
Yeah. And so the way that you do like coupon websites is very different than the way that people are getting attention via creators today. So like I think the best example is like Honey, right?
Sure.
Or one of these types of things where basically Honey scans the internet for, hey, what is the best coupon for a specific item? They basically get the affiliate fee. It is essentially like a very sort of fast version of affiliate marketing, right?
Sure. Yep. It's
And
a browser extension, and basically it drops its cookie upon checkout. The last touch attribution, they're going to get a commissionable payout because it's last click, even though it's just prompting the user to drop the cookie for them and erases the other one. So that's the last click attribution. So super easy and forward for coupon sites to do.
yeah, exactly. And so that's sort of what the natural extension of affiliate marketing in the past was. And I don't think that it had anything to do with content. It had everything to do with discounting, right? And I think that what happened over the course of first with the increase of social media, but then even more importantly during the pandemic, was actually people were influenced by, creators around what kinds of items to buy, because they were either like, hey, this person is like me, or aspirational, I want to be like this person. And actually, this is like a very normal human behavior. I think we sort of think about it as like a digital thing, but actually thinking about it in the real world is actually a much easier way to sort of provide a framework around why there is so much creator-driven commerce today. So before the pandemic, when you would just walk around on like the main street of a city or in a mall or wherever it is, and you would just see people wearing things or buying things, that would actually be a primary source for ideas for things that you actually like, right? So, for example, if I'm walking around in San Francisco, I see somebody who looks like me, and I'm like, man, that gray sweater with a zip looks great on that person. I look like that person. It'll probably look great on me. I'm going to go buy a gray sweater with a zip, right?
Sure.
Or this like very common interaction that you see happening in malls, like, hey, where did you buy that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think like thinking about it in that context is actually a lot easier to then draw the parallel as opposed to thinking about it in the context of affiliate marketing in the past. Because now if you think about this real world interaction where it's like, hey, I'm inspired by this appearance, by this good, by whatever it is the action that is happening in the real world, what is the online equivalent of that? That is creators using products in their lives that is being showcased on social media. The way it happens to get implemented today is using affiliate technology, but that's actually irrelevant to the human desire, right? The human desire is I aspirationally want to be like this person, or I identify with this person and therefore I want to buy this good. And that's why there's such high intent that gets driven from creator-based e-commerce, right? Like why would you buy Terramana tequila? It's because you are like, man, I love The Rock.
Right.
Right.
It's something that's constantly in front of you, and you get that interaction. And you're right. It's the buyer psychology of who do I want to emulate and be like, and you kind of aren't let down in that regards. It goes back to the olden. I say olden days. This is going to be bad for people who still watched movies of, hey, there's cigarettes or there's all these different like Camel advertisements and stuff like that. That was influencer marketing subtly in mid-side movies. He would zoom in, and I'm aware of this because of marketing. It always zooms in on products. TV shows do this too, of Viking grill or Viking appliances. If you're on Top Chef or something like that, it just happens now more subtly, and has always happened. But in social commerce, like you said, the people you want to emulate, it's kind of, hey, I want to seek out these individuals and I want to be like them. The product does get first and foremost, it's in the front and center, and they kind of have that social trust of, hey, this person likes it, why don't I at least try it or be like it? And it's a real power that's really shifted in terms of influencer marketing for sure. I would agree. I think affiliate marketing got it better because it's just discounting and couponing, but now it's become a whole different level of marketing and advertising and sharing in that regard. So with that being said, influencer marketing, do you think people are still enjoy being sold to subtly, or do you want people to be more front and center? Like, how are you seeing audiences respond to this shift in dynamic, especially during the pandemic of, I don't mind if they're promoting a product or I see paid ads anywhere else, why does that bother me? Or is it really a disruption to the space and people are averse to it more?
Man, that is a great question. So there are actually two dynamics. One is the audience dynamics, and the second is the creator dynamics. Okay, so the first question is, how does the creator feel about doing sponsored content or working with a brand, right? 100% of creators that I speak with will not talk about a brand that they do not actually like. So this is like the single most important thing for people to understand is it does not matter how you position it or whatever it is, because a creator's job fundamentally is to build creative output, right? And creative output, I mean, we're on a podcast right now. This is literally creative output, right? Like you can't have a conversation with somebody on a podcast unless there's some level of authentic interest around, hey, this topic would actually be interesting to me and to my audience, right? Like,
Of course.
It just doesn't make any sense to do that, right? Why would you bring on a guest where it's like a totally unrelated topic, you don't like it, your audience won't like it? I mean, it just doesn't add up, right? And so the thing that people sometimes don't appreciate is that creators will not work with brands that they don't actually have either authentic like for or authentic interest in. Then the second thing that you asked, which is like your direct question, which is how do consumers feel about it, right? And this is where it gets very interesting. The way that creator commerce actually started to emerge was not that creators started to get brands approaching them and saying, hey, you have a huge audience, let's work with you. Like that only happened in a very minority of cases. The very large economy of mid and long tail creators who are creating content for their audience came from the audience asking them, hey, where did you get that sweater? Where did you buy that table? Where did you get that placemat that you're putting on your kitchen? That's where it came from. And so actually the consumer pull is extremely strong. And if you ask people, so there's a creator who we work with who was kind enough to actually ask their audience, hey, what do you actually like best about when I talk about a product in terms of your likelihood to then actually buy that product? And the single most common answer was, as long as it's something that you authentically like, we actually like that experience of shopping because we have faith in you, and therefore we have faith in the recommendations that you are providing. And so this is like, I think this is a often sort of mischaracterized space where people think, oh, I wonder if it's like getting too salesy, or I wonder if X or Y. But if you combine the fact that creators will not do things that are not actually true to themselves and to their desires, with the fact that the audience actually is seeking inspiration, it's just a massive amount of market pull that you're actually just filling in that demand for that type of recommendation. And I think when you start to think about it that way, it actually is very helpful in uncovering the economic opportunity that is available for both the creator and their audience.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it, is if you're thinking about it, of making sure that the audience comes first and you keep them at the forefront. I think it's very important to know that, hey, this is not a channel, or this is not me just trying to push constant things, down your throat for you to buy. This is stuff that I believe in, and kind of that trust factor. I think a lot of influencers or creators take that to heart of, hey, I won't push a product that I don't personally believe in. I won't do it without any sort of, there's compensation involved, but if it doesn't fit the audience and it doesn't fit correct, that relationship's already on the wrong foot if you're accepting of that too. So with that being said, what was kind of the natural, you see this unfolding in front of you, you see that there's somewhat of an issue, or there's a hole in the market, if you will. There's a struggle between relationship building, but also making sure that people aren't having that friction process of, they're talking about a product, I have to go through an ad, I have to go offline to a different website. There's a lot of steps in between. What was the issue that you were seeing within your own ecosystem while you helped develop Fermat?
Yeah, so actually it was driven largely by two insights. The first one was, I actually it's like funny how the world works in a series of serendipitous events. But basically the day before I resigned, I got approached by one of the large social networks to like join one of their creator programs. So all these social networks have these creator programs, and it's basically one of these things where they compensate you in order to build content as they're trying to increase the amount of content on their platform. And the level of compensation that they were offering during this bonus period was reasonably good. And so I was like, sure, why not? I'm resigning tomorrow anyway. So it was like a really serendipitous sort of event.
Still got to pay those bills.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, hey, this is great. And so that happened. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. But then once that sort of bonus period ended, the total amount of earnings from my content, I think as of this moment, is like under $83. I think it's something in that range, right?
So
And
this
it
is
was like,
content and video, or blog? What was the content you were creating?
it was written content.
Okay.
It was written content. And so basically, it was like a change in, 2 orders of magnitude between what was the bonus amounts that were being paid and then what was the ongoing mechanism of monetization. And so I personally experienced like, hey, most of the ways these people think that they can enable creators to earn a living will not work. It became very obvious that, hey, you cannot actually sustain a living on this type of mechanism of monetization. So that was really big sort of experience number one. And experience number two was, as I talked to more creators, the current ways of monetizing that were actually the highest amount of earnings, which is basically affiliate links. So affiliate links is actually the largest source of earnings for most creators. It has this very odd trade-off dimension. So if your content is really good, let's just pretend it's a blog, right, for a moment. Let's just say your blog content is really good, so it drives really high intent for shopping, right? What that means is, as the person reads your content, they will click on the link, go to the brand's website, and then now they're on the brand's website, and then they will continue their journey there. So they have left your content at this point. Right? Your engagement has dropped because you're good at driving sales, right? So there's this fundamental trade-off where the better you are at driving sales, the worse you are at engaging your audience.
That's true.
Okay. So this was sort of a glaring problem with the space, right? Why should it be the case that the better your content is, the less likely it is that you are going to continue to engage that audience, right? And so that was the moment where I realized, wait a second, not only is it the case that it's really hard to make a living as a creator, but now you have this additional complexity where the best way to make money reduces engagement on your content. So it's like, okay, this economy has got to get fixed. And so that's when sort of the idea for, hey, let's at least solve this big problem of having the person bounce out to another website in order to create the conversion. That was sort of step one. And then as we started to get deeper and deeper in the space, we started to realize actually the depth of opportunity here to enable really great partnerships is quite large. And this is just the surface of what you can do once you start to actually align incentives by having transaction and engagement both go up at the same time.
I like that a lot. So you're looking at having frictionless opportunity to make sure that engagement's going up, but also conversions are staying high if they're really good at what they're doing. All of that happens on social media. So how do you develop a tool, or how do you make that commerce short, like that process happen without going outside the ecosystem and making it more conducive to where the customer already is? So if it's on an Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, whatnot, you don't want to have something so jarring as a landing page or something like that. If you want it to look and feel something like what the person is engaging on, I'm assuming, how do you develop that without making it on Facebook or on LinkedIn or wherever this person might be living content wise?
Yeah. So there's two dimensions to that question. The first one is, there are actually a lot of creators who own and operate their own websites, right? So this is sort of like blogging or anybody who has their own site or app or whatever it may be. So that context is sort of context dimension number one, where you can actually very easily build tools within the scope of their website that allows for a direct commerce interaction within that website. The second question around platforms is really important in terms of thinking about what is the consumer expectation. So the consumer expectation is, hey, I'm on X platform, but actually what they're on X platform for is for content of some variety, right? So let's just say if it's on Instagram, nominally speaking, what it is, hey, I want to see the content from the people who I follow, and I love watching stories, right? So the goal then is, how do you create a commerce experience while you're watching stories such that when you go from the story of the creator to the actual commerce experience, it is continuous in that content. So let's just say it's a creator using a pan as an example. Then once you say, okay, I want to buy this, you want to continue having it be the case that you're seeing the creator using the pan, and then you're afforded the opportunity to actually check out alongside the creator such that it'll get fulfilled by a brand that you have learned about through that creator, right? So the job to do is actually to make sure that the experience is highly authentic to both the creator and the brand once you see that initial content. And then once you check out, that you're pushed back into your ongoing like story watching experience, right? And actually, when you frame it that way and you sort of abstract and realize like the consumer does not care who powers that experience. They don't care whether Instagram powers that experience, whether TikTok powers that experience. Like they don't care. They care that they have that experience, right? And so that's the way that we approach how do you actually embed within social platforms. You don't actually need a platform to build the tooling. What you need is for an experience that feels seamless and that allows you to continue the journey that you were otherwise already on. That's sort of the product development philosophy.
Gotcha. So in that capacity, what was important that was it just having the product or having the brand focus? Is that this is all sounds like product focus in that capacity to make sure that, hey, if I'm talking about headphones with Sony headphones or something like that, I want that content to be embeddable in terms of whether it's I'm talking about that itself right then and there, and they can find directly. They're not going to an off Sony's website. Then you have to search for headphones. You're not searching for all those things. That I get. Is it super important to just eliminate as many steps as possible to get them to the product in itself, to even see features, functionality, whatever it looks like, and make it customizable to, hey, now instead of 5 steps to get to Sony headphones, I'm down at 3 or 2 or even 1.
Exactly. So there's two things. One is you want to reduce the number of steps because the intent that was created was based on a specific product being shown alongside the creator. So let's just say you're the creator and it's the Sony headphones and you're saying like, hey, if you want to start podcasting, you got to buy these Sony headphones, right?
Sure.
And it's like reasonably clear what the call to action is. Then when the person actually goes to buy, you want two things to happen. You want it to be as short of a process as possible while supplying just the information that would be necessary in order to complete the transaction. So it should only complement what you have already said about the headphones, not just give you a standard product description page. And then the second thing it should do is it should actually pull in images and video of you talking about the headphones in the checkout process. Because the reason I'm buying it is because Ryan said, hey, these are great headphones. So I want Ryan to be alongside me as I'm checking out and buying these headphones. So those are the two things you need to solve for.
So how does that work on mobile too? Like, are you sharing screen? Are you sharing is it like a pop-up functionality? How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. It looks like basically like anything else that would happen in mobile, which is it basically slides up and then you actually have the creator walk you through the checkout process and provide the complementary information around what is actually happening. And when I say you have the creator walk you through, I don't mean like, you're actually
Welcome
on the
to
other
checkout.
side.
Yeah, you're not Siri just talking you through putting your credit card information here and make sure that not all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's more about like what does the creator actually want to say to their audience during this process, right? And the creator actually has a point of view, which is why they partnered with the brand in the first place. So
cool. Well, I like that. So in that functionality, is there I'm curious about actionable data in this capacity because I'm a data nerd and I want to understand hey, what's the actual lift conversion rate when it comes to what's the lift if I'm working with Fermat and companies like that? Is there a significant increase if you go from 5 to 2 or whatever the traditional cut down of how many steps you have to go to before you get to checkout? Is there a big enough lift where you can see it?
This is like the most unbelievable part of this whole thing. So I mean, like
Hit me with all the details.
I can't. Yeah, I mean, I truly can't make this stuff up because I would not have imagined it to be true. So the first thing is that when you're watching creator content on social versus seeing a normal ad on social, so like a normal ad on social media for e-commerce, basically the click out rate to the brand's website is like between 0.9 and 1%. That's the average, right? You can keep me honest, but
2.9, that's traditional email as well as like any sort of paid ad campaign. That's pretty traditional, I would say.
Sorry, say that again. What?
Oh yeah, I would say like that sounds pretty traditional in terms of that percentage.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're seeing is if you actually have creator content, meaning like a creator is talking about a product, you get between 2 and 3x that. Okay, in terms of the click to the actual flow. Then the second part is once you're on the brand website, usually the question is what percentage of people actually do a cart fill? Because the moment you have a cart fill, you have a very large number of tools to get from cart fill to actual checkout, right? You can do like abandoned cart reminders, you can do all these sorts of things, right? So then the cart fill is actually like a pretty critical step. And the average cart fill for e-commerce is, call it 4% for a D2C site, right? Again, you can keep me honest if that doesn't sound right.
But it sounds about right. Yeah, with more on-site attribution and conversion is pretty high. I know like a marketplace like an Amazon, it can be as high as like 6 or 8%. I mean, it's pretty high when the in destination is more apparent. The closer you get to the cart, the higher conversion.
Exactly. So what we're seeing when we do it in content, as opposed to in like a standard either D2C site or marketplace, is we're seeing anywhere between 7 and 20%, which is a very large change, depending on the type of content and things like that. And then at that point, once you're in the actual checkout flow, now there's like a lot of confounding factors, but basically you actually gotten the person to decide to do a cart fill, and you have the opportunity to now do a bunch of other things in order to get them to complete the checkout. And we're seeing that the lift dynamics are actually incredibly powerful. And I think that this is not surprising when you zoom back out and like talking about like The Rock and Mr. Beast again. Like the only reason that you can get sales volumes like they're getting is because the extent of intent that gets created with creators is just dramatically different than when it's a standard product description page from a brand, right? So that's like sort of the magic sauce. And then once you're in the checkout flow, now you're sort of more in more standard territory. But the 2 steps before that is where all the magic happens.
It sounds like my goal should be, according to your shop, is really I should get them to the checkout cart. And obviously there's so many other tools that can help me with that. But if the product is in the cart, why not in this capacity just add product XYZ to the cart on behalf of the influencer? For example, like obviously the intent is there, automatically adding it to the cart. Does that eliminate or does that upset the customer? Is that a silly idea? What when people think through this process, for them to actually decide to put it into a cart is a step in and of itself. So if there's an intent process of, hey, you've added product to your cart already, is that a backwards way to look at it, or is that a process where it has to be actually intent from the customer to click on that button and say add to cart is needed?
I think that generally speaking, you want to have the person there's basically 3 reasons why you want to have the person actually click a button that says like, I want to purchase, right? Sure. Buy now, add to cart, whatever is the sort of phrasing that you use. The first one is that you want to give them the opportunity to see what happens when they click buy now. The second one is you want to give them the ability to buy additional products to increase your average order value. And then the third one is that you actually want as many like true leads as you possibly can have. So the more people who are intentionally filling a cart, the more true leads your marketing tooling has, as opposed to people who are getting auto added. And now, you actually don't know whether those people have real intent to buy the good, right? It's just sort of like, hey, you're
browsing, they're just checking it out.
Yeah. Like there's this company that I really admire, and I actually don't know the data, but I would love to have a conversation with them at some point, called Grove Collaborative. Do you know Grove Collaborative?
No, I haven't actually.
So you should go to their website. What happens is when you go to their website as a first-time customer, there's like 15 products that get automatically added to your cart. And it's actually like a very confusing Again, I admire this company, so I don't mean it in a negative way, but I'm like very not used to that type of thing, right? So, and this is sort of along the lines of what you were saying, which is like, hey, why don't you just auto add the thing to the cart? But it's just like, wait a second, I didn't put these things in the cart. What are they doing here? And then now you're looking through this cart and you're like, do I want this? Do I not want this? Like, what's going on? How do I look for products? And it actually creates more questions to me. And so that's why I would love to have a conversation with this company and sort of better understand, hey, what are the set of things that you saw that led to this decision? Because the way I view these types of things is they know something that I don't know, right? It's like I look at these types of decisions that feel different from what other people are doing as a source of inspiration. And it's like, hey, maybe they know something that you and I don't know, and we should sort of learn from that decision. Yeah, but I don't actually know what happens on average when you sort of pre-add things to a cart.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'm curious from again, every marketing agency that I've ever had on the show has said, hey, eliminate barriers for people to get to checkout, make that process as seamless as possible. But also, there's a fine line. I want to make sure that that's clear in this for people who are listening, is that there's that line that you cross of automation versus intent. I would argue to say that if they don't feel like they're in control of their own journey, then it gets really, frustrating, and people have short attention spans. And if it's pop-ups or things like that, and you don't know how to get to it, or you want to kind of, like you said, kind of peruse, do a little research before you add it to the cart. There's so many different buyer avatars. If you just assume and add, again, the marketing side of me is like, hey, maybe that's not such a big deal. They're just ready to go, and you want to make it streamlined for them. But there's also a, hey, maybe they see something bigger, more flashy. They upgrade themselves, or they do a little research, and then they come back. So again, you don't want to always assume that their intent is instantaneous, unless it's more of a campaign of, hey, influencer XYZ is saying you get for all the first 1,000 people who purchase a bottle of the Rocks tequila, again, they're going to get a signed autograph from the Rock or something like that, where it's in buyer intent and there is an actual call to action within that quote unquote message. So I would be curious to see that data if people are against it and people enjoy it. So very interesting and curious. So I'm thinking a couple other things to shop in a couple final moments that we have with you. What's kind of the goal and ambition with you and the team there? What's kind of the holes that you have fixed, but also the ones that you're currently looking to fill and kind of problem solve for people? What are those things that are on the roadmap for the future as you guys continue to grow out this awesome solution?
Yeah, so I think at least for us, the sort of driving forces for the company are, one, we want to enable creators to actually have a very strong, fulfilling mechanism with which they deliver creative output with e-commerce that actually gives fuel to that creative output and enables monetization, so that way they can do that as a living, right? So that's like really big goal number one, is what I would describe as like economic opportunity and economic enablement for creators. And then really big goal number two is create a technology that allows for brands to acquire customers in a sustainable way, especially given the shifts that are happening in the ecosystem. So we haven't really talked about this yet, but big dimensions of change that are happening in the ecosystem are things like Apple's ATT. They're changing the privacy rules so that you can only capture a certain amount of information. Consumers opt out of that collection of information. And then Google's removing the third-party cookie next year, which will create yet another change in how you capture consumer information, right? And so brands are going to have a very hard time growing as these changes happen. And I actually think that that's like a bad thing for economic output, because you actually want more small and medium-sized brands to have more economic opportunity to continue to power the economy, right? You don't want to end up in a world where everything is controlled by a small number of extremely large retailers. You want to end up in a world where there's millions upon millions of entrepreneurs either building creative output or building products. And the way that we see it is we want to make sure that as there are changes in each of these ecosystems, we want each of them to give fuel to the other, right? That's sort of like where the mission of the company lies.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I like to hear that. And there's a reason we've talked so much at length about, Apple the iOS update, the cookie being rolled back. There's a lot of different components, which it does make sense that how do you look at outside tools and build your audience, collect information, and know what's actually working. I know marketing people in general too, it really is difficult to kind of go and look at what used to work and the data that would attribute to the growth and understand the customer and what was working, what wasn't. And I know this is where innovation comes. So that's why it's important to always understand, hey, as this kind of opportunity dies down, there'll be innovation to kind of grow and develop your own audience and research tools. Developing, influencer pushing and growing, building your brand, or launching a new product. It all kind of has its own ecosystem that with innovation and kind of stoppage and hey, that's a door that's now locked. You can't go down that. People are going to find another way to build another door. There's going to be cool innovation things just like you guys at Fermat. So I think it's really cool what you guys are doing and kind of supplementing that stopgap, if you will, to help people grow. For people who are listening to this, I know we put in the show notes and as well as on live. If people want to connect with you, in the team shop, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so the best way is just to reach out. Either you can email me directly, I'm Rishabh at fermatcommerce.com, or you can email our team. It's just hello@fermatcommerce.com, and we monitor that alias like a hawk. So for sure, somebody will get back to you. That's the easiest way to reach out to us.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. Hey, for everyone who finishes an episode with me and they make it through unscathed, or at least I think they make it through unscathed. I call them a friend of the show. So I appreciate all my digging and my questions. I know a lot of people respond and are very intrigued by this, as well as I am. So thank you for coming on and now becoming a friend of the show. You're more than welcome to come back in my corner of the internet next time to share great insights on what you're seeing in the world and talk a little baseball next time. See how those Giants are doing here this year. I don't know how they're doing so far, but I know my Cubs are doing pretty good. So I'm excited about that. It's been a couple of years since we've been up to snuff. So I'm excited.
No, the Giants have had a good start to the season.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's awesome. Well, congrats on all the success you guys are doing there, and we'll have to check in with you here down the road and see how things are going, and any insights that you can share with us. We'd love to kind of pass those along to our audience. So thank you so much for hopping on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. All right, thanks everyone.
Awesome. And then thank you, Rishabh, and thank you everyone for coming on Crossover Commerce. This has been episode 2. I'm gonna mispronounce this again. 230. I'm gonna say 238. I've had been going on all episode. I just never see it as it comes by, but episode 238 of Crossover Commerce. This is my corner of the internet where I bring the best brands in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Make sure you subscribe to our channels, whether it be on social media or if you download audio versions, which again, we know you are listening to us. If you love the audio version only, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast destinations. That's going to be on Apple, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever your favorite podcasts are. You just search for Crossover Commerce Podcast and we'll be there. Make sure you just download and subscribe and like on that channel. And we'll appreciate that as we continue to pump out more great content moving forward. That being said, thank you, Ping Pong Payments. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in live. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode of Crossover Commerce. Take care.